A warm welcome to the program today. I'm Amarachi Ubani. This week on Diplomatic Channel, fresh shelling by Russian forces across Ukraine, even in the capital Kyiv, as the Russian invasion intensifies in the country. Russia claims it has taken control of Mariupol and ordered Ukrainian soldiers there to either surrender or be prepared to die. Ukraine says it has no intentions of surrendering to the Russian forces. We'll be talking to geopolitical analyst Edward Okpa on the new dimensions of the war and what could happen next. Plus, Britain signs a partnership with Rwanda, which could see tens of thousands of migrants who arrived illegally in the UK being resettled in the East African country. That's Diplomatic Channel in a wrap. Let's check in on other discussions in diplomatic circles. We'll be right back. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has observed the test firing of a new type of tactical guided weapon aimed at boosting the country's nuclear capabilities. State media says the new type tactical guided weapon system is of great significance in drastically improving firepower of the frontline long-range artillery units and enhancing the efficiency in the operation of tactical nukes of North Korea and the diversification of their firepower missions. South Korea's military earlier on Sunday said that North Korea had fired 2 projectiles towards the East Sea at around 6 p.m. local time. The U.S. offices of Guam Homeland Security and Civil Defense said the launch did pose an immediate threat to Guam or the Northern Marianas. Russia has banned 13 British political figures from entering the country in response to what it calls the British government's unprecedented hostile actions, including sanctions against Russian officials. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, former Prime Minister Theresa May, Foreign Secretary Liz Truss, Defence Secretary Ben Wallace, and 9 other British government members and politicians are on the sanction list released by the Russian Foreign Ministry. A statement from the ministry said the United Kingdom aims at isolating Russia internationally and creating conditions for containing Russia and wrecking Russia's economy. Finally, Israeli police have clashed with Palestinians throwing fireworks in the alleyways of Jerusalem's Old City on Sunday as a visit by Jews to a contested holy site stoked tensions during the Muslim month of Ramadan. Violence at the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound, which surged on Friday, has set off global worries about a slide back into religiously inflected fighting as Ramadan coincides with the Jewish festival of Passover and Christianity's Easter. Palestinians said Israeli police had temporarily limited their access to the compound, which is also the site of ancient Jewish temples, after dawn prayers to enable the scheduled visit by Jews who toured the site on foot under guard. Welcome back. This weekend gone by can only be described as hell for many in Ukraine, as Russian airstrikes pounded targets, causing more destruction and deaths. Russia, claiming to have taken control of the besieged city of Mariupol, warned it would only spare the lives of Ukrainian soldiers there if they laid down their arms on Sunday. If it happened that Russia took control of Mariupol, then it would have taken control of the land corridor between Crimea and Donbass, and Russia would end up controlling more than 80% of Ukraine's Black Sea coastline, cutting off its maritime trade and further isolating it from the world.
Shelling has intensified in cities across Ukraine this weekend. On Sunday, shellings in the country's second biggest city, Kharkiv, hit a residential building and a nearby hospital, killing at least 5 people and injuring 14 others. One local resident said her house was hit by the shelling, which she assumed was aimed at the nearby hospital. The shelling also damaged a nearby kindergarten. After failing to overcome Ukrainian resistance in the north, The Russian military has refocused its ground offensive in Donbass while maintaining long-distance strikes elsewhere, including the capital, Kyiv. Meanwhile, Ukraine says the remaining forces in the southern port of Mariupol are still fighting and continue to defy a Russian demand that they surrender.
No, city still is not fallen. There is still our military forces, our soldiers, so they will fight till the end. And as for now, they still are in Mariupol.
The Ukrainian Prime Minister also says that he and other Ukrainian finance officials will seek more financial assistance this weekend during International Monetary Fund and the World Bank meetings in Washington. Over in the city of Kramatorsk, air raid sirens echo as fighting rage in the east of the country. British military intelligence say the towns of Kramatorsk and Kostiantynivka are likely to be targeted by Russia for levels of violence seen in other urban centers since Moscow invaded Ukraine. In an update on the war, Britain's Ministry of Defense said the widespread missile and artillery strikes and efforts to concentrate forces for an offensive showed a reversion to traditional Russian military doctrine. In another development, Russia's defense ministry says the Russian troops shot down a Ukrainian military transport plane near Odessa, which was carrying weapons supplied by the Western countries. The Russian Foreign Ministry said on Friday that it has sent a diplomatic note to all countries, including the United States, regarding arming Ukraine. American media reported that Russia sent a formal note to the U.S. government earlier in the week and warned of unpredictable consequences if the U.S. and NATO continue to send arms to Ukraine. The war has drawn international attention as leaders condemn alleged atrocities committed in Ukraine. On Easter Sunday, Pope Francis marked what he called an Easter Sunday of war. Using his message to urge leaders to hear the people's plea for peace in Ukraine, and implicitly criticized Russia for dragging the country into a cruel and senseless conflict. He said Ukraine was sorely tired by the violence and destruction of the cruel and senseless war into which it was dragged. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has warned that the world should prepare in a number of ways for the possibility Russia might use nuclear weapons. He did not give evidence for the assertion, but added that several countries had demonstrated readiness, including Britain, the US, Italy, and Turkey.
Joining me now is geopolitical analyst Edward Okpa. He's in Texas. Edward, thank you for joining me on the program.
And thank you for having me. So same to you.
So let's begin. Russia has just claimed its forces have taken over Mariupol in Ukraine and warned Ukrainian soldiers to surrender or die. Now, if that claim is true, how significant a victory will this be for Russia?
Well, I mean, since the war started, Russia has been making, significant inroads into Ukraine. And so as they keep capturing some of their significant cities, obviously they are winning. And that's what they've always wanted to do. They always wanted to take over Ukraine. And the resistance from Ukraine hasn't been enough to forestall the incursion into their own territory. So, it's a war, and so one side is going to celebrate, the other side is going to either re-strategize or try to surrender. I don't know whether Ukraine will surrender, because if they do, then that's going to be a slap on all the allies that have been trying to support them or are supporting them. It's very unfortunate what is happening in today's world, but then again, it goes to show intelligence. Putin didn't wake up one day and say, I'm going to do this. He's been planning this. If you go back to even when Obama was in office and Putin has stepped aside and had a prime minister. If you Google that story, there was a time the prime minister was having a conversation with Obama. Obama didn't know the microphone wasn't off, and Obama made a comment. Well, let me win my re-election, and then we'll see what happens. So Putin has been doing this for a long time. Then when Trump came in, obviously there was a cool down, but it didn't mean he forgot his own ambition. And then he sees an American president that he thinks he can take advantage of, his own weakness or whatever he might, call it. And then he moved in.
Yeah. Well, those threats haven't gone down well with President Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian president. He's countered with his own warning that eliminating Ukrainian fighters in Mariupol would put an end to ongoing peace talks. You think Russia is still interested in those talks?
Well, I mean, if Russia is interested in the peace talk, by now there wouldn't have been any more fighting. They would have been going back and forth, trying to iron out the differences, so to come to terms with what both parties are demanding of each other. So I don't think, because Russia is winning, and I think even China on its own side is supporting Russia some kind of way. So this is just bigger than Ukraine and Russia. There are some geopolitical interests there. Russia, China would like to see Russia do this, so that way, if they decide to do something in Taiwan, then America has no other way to counter them. So this is what is going on. We're just going to wait and see.
So you just established that Russia, of course, isn't interested in these talks. But what would it mean for Ukraine if the talks end abruptly at this point?
Well, yeah, if Russia is making the progress they're making and Ukraine is not able to counter, then they see no need to have talks. I think Russia would have been agreeable to talks if they see that they are weak. But now they are the bigger force in the two conflict, and so they don't see any benefit for them to have talks. So maybe something will come around, and they will decide to have talks. But right now, Putin doesn't even want to do it, because he's waiting for an opportunity. If America were going to be indirectly drawn into this conflict, then it's going to just escalate in the entire region. So, and America is just trying to be very careful not to get into it. And then Russia sees no need to have conversation with anybody, because they think they are winning.
You think America has not already been drawn into the war? I mean, they're supplying Ukraine with military weapons and all of the things that Ukraine has, most of the things Ukraine has requested, except sending boots on the ground.
Well, that's the thing. That's what would trigger the war into a bigger conflict if American soldiers go into Ukraine. And when what good is it for Ukraine? You're giving them arms they are not able to use, or if they use it, they are not winning, or you give them money. I mean, money don't win wars. What win wars are soldiers, and then the tactical, support of the other side. So you could pile up on all the equipment in Ukraine and money, and they're just a weak country to confront what Russia is doing. So America is just being very careful not to send soldiers in there. And the Americans, I don't even, that was going to be a big national issue if you start to send soldiers over there. Because again, then the Third World War, where everybody's been trying to avoid, may just get triggered. So America is not likely to send any soldiers in there.
While we understand, the consequences of sending in troops into Ukraine, and the impact that could have on the region, it just appears that, everyone is just standing and just staring at Ukraine, offering whatever assistance they can, which is, of course, military and financial, providing funds, and then also sending in, different agencies are sending in medical assistance and all of that. But it just seems that Ukraine really is alone in this. It's facing, this devouring enemy alone.
Well, again, it's one of those things, love thy neighbor. Ukraine should have assessed its own strength before they start poking the bear. Russia is just the bear. So, maybe Ukraine calculated their own alliance. Now, they are not member of NATO. NATO is not going to all of a sudden admit them in order to go fight for them. Then America, that is their own biggest supporter, is constrained as to what they can do militarily. They can, America can give arms to anybody, but the arms themselves don't win wars. You have to have the soldiers. You have to have the, domestic resources in terms of your own military capacity to use those weapons. So Ukraine, yes, they are alone. So, left to me, it's like, be friends with your neighbor as opposed to somebody so far away. So what is it that they are fighting for? Can they come to terms about it? At the end of the day, why are innocent lives being wasted because of the ego of two people? Basically, that's what this is. It's the ego of Putin and the ego of Zelensky. So, look each other in the face and let's come to terms and stop this incursion, because it's not doing anybody anything.
There is a mutual fear in the region about what Russia could do. If the Russian president kept saying for weeks he had no plans to invade Ukraine, and then all of a sudden he invaded Ukraine, the other countries are also scared. Anything could happen to them. So the purpose of them wanting to join NATO is for protection, military protection. You just said they don't even have a proper army.
Sweden and Finland, they have nothing to worry about it. They've never had any conflict or any issue. Russia doesn't want to go that far. You remember the reason for Ukraine is that, the oil or the gas that Russia ships to Europe, the pipeline somehow goes through Ukraine. And so Russia wants to maintain the control of that access to that market. And so that's why they're not going to go jumping all over to try to attack other countries. And so, but it's a strategic thing that NATO probably thrown out there to see if that will make Russia, want to come and talk. They can't hurriedly all of a sudden decide to admit countries into NATO alliance in order to make Russia to give up on what they want. The main conflict is between Russia and Ukraine. And so any other sideshow doesn't get, it's just going to escalate the conflict. So, but let's just focus on what needs to happen. Putin said he wasn't gonna invade. Yeah, but he has his own, he's keeping all his ace cards. And so when he thought it was time for him to do so, he did it. Who's going to punish him for the invading? Is he going to be all of a sudden you find what is his name, Putin being tried by the International Court of Justice for war crime? It's not going to happen. Maybe with African countries, they can do that to African countries, but nobody's going to go do that to Putin. So again, it shows you how fragile it is. It shows you how organizations like UN are very, they are just toothless bulldog. They only, their influence and power is, when they're in maybe DRC, peacekeeping force and all this other stuff. They wouldn't do that over there. So it calls to question, how relevant and effective are, United Nations, because Russia is a member of the Security Council. Maybe they need to expand the Security Council so that countries can now vote, not just 5 of them. Because now, China is now supporting Russia. Then the other 3 are just quiet. They're not going to do anything. So the world needs to come back and rearrange, this geopolitical stuff. Remember when UN was formed in 1948? A lot of no African country, maybe Egypt was an independent nation. And since then, a whole lot of them, we have now up to almost 200 countries. And we are still going along with what the original charter said. You should go back now and say, no, let's renegotiate this charter if it's not going to suit you. Remember, every country is a sovereign nation, and you have the respect and integrity of your own country, no matter how small you are. So when that respect is not being reciprocated, you don't have to belong. You don't have to join. It's a membership thing. If the membership charter doesn't suit you, get out of it. Go form your own, and let the world know we are no longer in whatever century when some guy in some country will come in and dictate to the world. Now everybody has access to everybody. So now you should be emboldened as a nation to stand firm, and attract respect for your country.
Well, so many issues being raised here: sovereignty, might. The responsibilities that nations have towards each other, as well as the recalcitrant nations. Thank you so much, Edward, for speaking with me, and do have a happy Easter.
Well, thank you. It's very unfortunate what is going on in Plateau. I think, there's something going on there. So many people died. But look at how the world reports news. It's not even known on this side of the world. But here we have some Nigerians volunteering to go fight for Ukraine. How many Ukrainians are going to volunteer to go fight for Nigeria, for what is going on? So that's the mentality. The Black race, especially as represented by the Africans, supposed to stop being this coward and sheepish and being following, because they are not being reciprocated. What they are willing to do to other people are not doing for them. So just like, when we're being colonized.
You've given us a lot. You've given us a lot to think about. Thank you. I know you have a lot to say. Unfortunately, not a lot of time. Thank you again, Edward.
Yes. Thank you, and have a good Easter, and hopefully we'll talk to you again.
The UK is planning to send back tens of thousands of migrants who arrived into the country illegally. This applies not to all migrants, but to those who arrived illegally since January 1st, 2022. Where will they be headed? Rwanda. It will be the first time, though, the UK has tried to stem the flow of migrants into the country. In January this year, Prime Minister Boris Johnson tasked the Royal Navy to stop boats carrying migrants and refugees arriving on the country's shores via the English Channel. In other words, the Ministry of Defence took over command of the operation from the UK's Border Force Agency. The ministry, however, said it was exploring every avenue to prevent more crossings following a surge in the number of people who reached the UK from France by boat last year.
Buzz about the new migrant policy begins with the British Prime Minister's announcement on Thursday as he outlined measures designed to tackle the problem of cross-channel migration.
So from today, our new migration and economic development partnership will mean that anyone entering the UK illegally, as well as those who have arrived illegally since January the 1st, may now be relocated to Rwanda. This innovative approach, driven by our shared humanitarian impulse and made possible by Brexit freedoms, will provide safe and legal routes for asylum while disrupting the business model of the gangs.
The plan drew swift and strong criticisms from opposition parties, with Interior Minister Priti Patel's Labour Party counterpart Yvette Cooper saying it was extortionate as well as unworkable and unethical. The Prime Minister said he knew the plan would be criticised and would face legal challenges, but he promised to do whatever it took to deliver it. Among the latest critics is Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, who says the policy did not stand the judgment of God. Delivering a sermon on Easter Sunday at Canterbury Cathedral, Justin Welby said the strategy posed serious ethical questions.
The details are for politics and politicians. The principle must stand the judgment of God, and it cannot. It cannot carry the weight of resurrection justice. It cannot carry the weight of life conquering death.
By the time the Prime Minister made the announcement, the Interior Minister, Priti Patel, was already in Rwanda to sign the deal. She described the agreement as a world first, adding it meant migrants who have entered the UK illegally could be sent to Rwanda and have their asylum claims decided there.
This will see some of those arriving illegally in the UK, such as those crossing the Channel in dangerous small boats, relocated to Rwanda to resettle and to rebuild their lives in the way in which the Minister has just outlined.
We just decided to give our contribution to a solution to illegal migration. And we are going to provide these people with a minimum for them to be able to live a dignified life. We are going to invest in skill development. We are going to invest in socio-economic integration of these people.
The British government will contribute an initial £120 million to the scheme. It says it wants to stem the flow of migrants trying to cross the channel to enter the UK. The arrival of migrants on rickety boats have been a source of tension between France and Britain. Ms. Patel says part of the reason the government chose Rwanda for an agreement to resettle illegal migrants was because it had a history of resettling refugees in a skilled way. Perhaps buttressing the government's point on Saturday, a group of migrants, including one injured and several young children, arrived in the English port of Dover after being rescued while crossing the channel. Last year, more than 28,000 migrants and refugees made the crossing from mainland Europe to Britain. The arrival of migrants on rickety boats has been a source of tension between France and Britain, especially after 27 migrants drowned when their dinghy deflated in November.
This is our final stop on the program. Remember, you can watch this episode and others on youtube.com/channelsweb. Just head to the playlist and search for Diplomatic Channel. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Thanks for watching.